This is a video that I have been promising for a couple of days in the fantastic and prolonged history of my recent YouTube account that has had very few views, of course. So it is even more fascinating that I'm still dedicating myself to this video. I would like to talk about historical revisionism. Of course, historical revisionism is prevalent among many countries, developed and undeveloped. You could say that it almost stems from directly a pride that people have in their own history. That is, if you were to be direct with people, they would come out with that explanation. That does not mean to say that there are not other roots to this phenomenon. However, that does not mean that even if there are some negative roots and consequences of this, that we cannot oblige it slightly and be slightly sympathetic towards some of the ideas that may be presented by various people. I myself believe that there is always a probability, such as like the probability that certain enterprising individuals believe that the universe is a simulation and so on, while there are also other probabilities that suggest that our history could not be even entirely what we assume it to be. Obviously, I would have created quite a few points and thoughts and ideas relating to this subject. I will start with the first subject, the first point of interest that I have come up with myself that will aid the understanding and investigation of alternate histories, alternate realities, and that is the role of the neurotransmitter. I will omit any kind of technical language relating to neurotransmitters and simply replace it with my own symbolic interpretation. And if that approaches the truth, then that is good. So the first thing is that if you go back in time, that may reveal the problems of history more than if you were to go figuratively forward in time. That's a given. So if you go back in time, you may have different neurotransmitter levels, different neurotransmitters. You may have different skills. You may have different bridges between the events that took place and the timelines and the time itself as a raw physical source in the universe. Obviously, time hasn't actually been identified as necessarily a real thing as of yet, but it is still a widely regarded and highly useful term. It is useful among the terminology that we use to understand many concepts indeed. So, I could dissect history on the spot right now according to the thoughts and notes I have created for myself, but I will focus purely on the neurotransmitter concept and relate this to skills and races. So worldwide, obviously, each gene pool, each race has different skills, whether you're black, white, and so on. Every race has its own nationalistic interests as well as its international interests, and that's a given. Obviously, it would be good to try and accommodate both in a fair manner as well as possible. So, I believe that if you are to take shall we call it a field, the field of aesthetics, and you were to draw a single map of the global Earth as a globe and place one single island on it, and maintain that island for 6 billion years, let's bring up a random number, a number that signifies something in our mind. How about an island that is a circle, for example? Just a circle, and a green circle, why not green? So, green, how about green? Yes, that makes sense. And suppose that the population is 1 million, and then the population continues to increase until it eventually reaches 6 billion, 10 million, 15 billion, and so on, until it skyrockets and continues and continues. And so if we take a single island as a cut-out shape on the entirety of the Earth, aesthetically we would want to change the shape and size of that object, that island, that country, that piece of the Earth, as the population increases. Unfortunately, given the limitations of aesthetics and the fact that we are pinning down the population to that specific land area, it cannot be achieved. And this relates to history and skills, which brings me to a principle that I would like to bring up, and that is skills relating to history. The fact that there may be many skills inherent in the different divisions in the different races, even though it may be beneficial also to combine the different races. So there will be different skill sets relating to separation and convergence and synergy between different factors of society, which will relate to an idea that I'll present in a separate video about racial game controllers and fingerprints, things along those lines, also relating to the Blue Ocean Strategy video. This may seem a little bit convoluted, the fact that I've been making so many additions to these concepts and piling it up, but that's just the nature of these inquiries, and no doubt in the future, in the near future, these things will have a better semblance in a better constructed small piece of work to deliver the concepts in clear sentences and paragraphs, probably something of that nature, like bullet points, which is the modern term for it. So about the neurotransmitter and the shape of the Earth, it could be said that as we are bridging the gaps in time, we are also reaching new elements of diplomacy. But obviously diplomacy and neurotransmitter are two different things, not because of the specific fields that they belong in, but simply on a conceptual level they actually mean different things when you try and combine the two. So if you were to imagine that the Earth were to assemble itself in different forms so that we would perceive some form of neurotransmission, that there would be a neurotransmitter element to the Earth. Say if there was a continent or a country that reformed as a finger pointing to the right, to the left, would we ignore or would we uphold this value? Would we then seek out what it is pointing at on this Earth as almost a guided neurotransmitter? However, on a diplomatic level it wouldn't make sense, because we would not necessarily want to engage in any politics with the location that it is pointing at. So this definitely relates to historical revisionism, aesthetics, and of course, as I've mentioned, the neurotransmitter concept. So if the different countries of the Earth formed many numerous islands, each pointing at different locations, would we follow these places, the location pointers, and once we reach those locations, would we then envelope ourselves in the skills relating to the specific area that we have embarked upon to reach and settle in? But then that would be like being in one location without any clear global objective, and so the difference between neurotransmission, neurotransmitters, aesthetics, and diplomacy are three different things relating to what I might call a skill tree. So I think in the next video I will talk about some more concepts relating to historical revisionism, but this is the starter point. It is a well-developed concept in my mind for the time being. Thank you.